this administration has actually done so much for the Black community, for underserved communities, for countries abroad. And you know, the really interesting thing is, I'm getting messages from people all over the world, from New Zealand, from Germany, from Australia, from England, and they're all saying the same thing. They're all saying that the far left is pushing an agenda of socialism and silencing anyone who speaks out on it. So it's not just happening here, and that makes it all the more reason why it's important that we stand up, because we're riddled with fear right now over speaking. And in America, that's our right. We have the right to speak out on this. And I do believe that more people see what's going on than not. And if all of us speak out, it will have to stop.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Stasios YouTube channel. This is a brand new channel, and I am Carmen Schober, the editor-in-chief of Stasios and the host of the No Apologies podcast. As you've guessed, we are venturing into video content, and so today I'm actually going to be hosting the first ever video version of No Apologies, and I have a super special guest, kind of an unexpected guest. I'll give you the quick background story. Some of you may know Samaire Armstrong from her roles on The OC or Entourage or The Mentalist. She's been in a lot of movies and television shows. You definitely will recognize her face. She's just a wide-ranging, very fun, talented actress. She recently came out in September, so barely a couple months ago, as a Trump supporter, and she publicly denounced Black Lives Matter, the movement, as, you know, a violent Marxist organization. And as you can imagine, as a Hollywood actress, this caused a bit of an uproar, but she has been boldly speaking out against a lot of progressive lies, progressive tactics, just really fighting the good fight in that very intensely hostile bubble that is Hollywood. And I saw her posts, I saw some of her posts about this on Instagram, and I just reached out mainly because I wanted to say, like, wow, I'm just really kind of blown away by the boldness. But I also asked, you know, hey, would you be willing to sit down and talk with me about this? And she graciously responded, said she would, and here we are. You're going to see the interview that we had. And I will just say, I had this long list of questions for Samaire, kind of got starstruck, kind of got just excited about the interview, and I didn't get into my long list of pre-prepared questions, but I still think you'll find this to be a really interesting, encouraging conversation. You know, we kind of talked about nonconformity, big aha moments that can really transform your life, just finding kindred spirits on the internet. We talked a little bit about storytelling, because some of you might know I'm a soon to be, hopefully, novelist, debut novelist. Samaire is an actress, so we talked a little bit about how stories work and heroes and anti-heroes. A wide-ranging, really fun conversation. I think you're going to enjoy it. Hopefully I can have Samaire back on to ask her more questions that I planned out. I think she could be a really fun No Apologies regular. We do have differing perspectives on faith. Samaire does not identify as a Christian, so I would love to talk more to her about that and learn more about what she does kind of think about spirituality, because that did come up in our conversation. So I'd love to continue that conversation with her. And yeah, I just hope you guys love it. Oh, a couple quick business things. I need to do this because I always forget to do it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Stasios channel, like us on Facebook, find the podcast, leave us a review, only if you like it though. That helps bump up our high rating, helps other people find the content. You can follow me on Instagram. That's Carmen Schober Writes, and just Carmen_Schober, SCHOBER Writes. And I think that's everything you're supposed to do. I don't know. You can find us. www.stacejos.net is where all of it's at. We would love to connect with you and, keep sharing content for bold, curious, interested Christians who want to keep chipping away at the progressive bubble. So please enjoy and see you next time. Oh my gosh. Well, I was watching a lot of your other interviews today and I was like, dang, this girl is making the circuit. You're doing all kinds of stuff.
Well, I'm especially excited because I'm trying to think, I don't think I've been interviewed by a woman yet.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, and I don't know, we haven't spoken, so I don't know your stance on like where you stand or anything, but having a woman who's outspoken, especially a white one, is not exactly easy to find.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and you are. So I am. My father is Scottish, Native American.
Okay.
My mom.
Love it. Yes.
Yeah. My mom is Cuban. And I was looking into your background. You are Italian, right? And
yeah. So it's funny because we always thought I was like. Until the Me 23 came out, everyone's like, I'm a purebred. And then it's like, oh, that doesn't exist at all, apparently. But yeah, so I'm actually like Middle Eastern and Northern African and Spanish and Eastern European and Welsh and like all these, variants of, which you realize, okay, that doesn't mean anything. None of it does. Right?
Oh, I know. And like, that's what's so funny about so many conversations about race today. People see me, sometimes they think I'm white, whatever that means.
You're white passing.
Totally.
Or
or I've had people ask me if I'm Middle Eastern before, and it's just this is so silly that we're like fighting about this.
Yes. And it's so silly that they've taken a quantifying element and being like, you can talk, you can't, you can talk, you can't, you have a right to opinion, you don't. But it makes sense because when I started coming out speaking, and I did it very subtly at first, but I started sharing like different pieces of other people's information, and people would immediately attack the background of the person speaking. Oh, they're too conservative, you can't believe them. Oh, they're too Christian, you can't believe them. Oh, she was caught in drama, you can't believe her. It's like, no, the fundamental of what she or he or they are saying is still true regardless of their background. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Like, it's been so damaging to discourse, to friendships, to truth seeking. The fact that is a strategy now, instead of just listening and asking the question, is this true? Instead, it's the question of, should you be allowed to say that? It's like, I don't care. Like, I don't care if the person, if the message is true, then why do we get so hung up on the messenger?
Right. And then it's funny because even then you can bring in, hold on, I'm going to close this. It's so hot.
Oh, no, you're fine. You do what you need to do.
So then you try to play by the left's tactics and be like, okay, you guys are all about identity politics. Well, here's someone who's within the identity that you're only allowing to speak. And then it's like, no, they're not, that's not right. They're just an Uncle Tom, or, they're just trying to be white, or just the craziest.
They hate themselves.
Right. They hate themselves. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like at some point, a thinking rational person realizes like, this is about making sure certain things are not said. That's all it comes down to, right? Like the rule, they're making up all these different rules, but the underlying fundamental rule is you cannot think that, you cannot say that. And that's, they'll think of any and every way to accomplish that.
Absolutely.
Man, we just dove right in. I love it.
I know. Oh, what was the other thing I was, this morning a friend of mine was saying, we were talking about just this, and he was saying now even truthers is like a derogatory word. Yeah. Like someone who wants the truth is bad, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
those damn truthers.
Oh my
speaking
God.
the truth.
What's so weird is that how old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay. Oh wow, you're smart and young. That's awesome.
I try. Thank you.
Well, I don't know what about your high school years, but when I was in high school, some of our literature was very like sci-fi, political, social statements, because we even read stuff from way back when, from like 1984, or Brave New World, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all happening now, which is so freaking weird. Like this stuff, like I could have never anticipated being what you and I would be talking about in the year 2020.
Yeah. You know what honestly was kind of my, like when it really became real. And I think probably for both of us, obviously you have a really cool, interesting life, and we'll get into that because, a lot of my listeners are not going to have any reference point for the kind of life you've lived. But for me, I got my graduate degree in English literature. I'm a writer. I wanted to be a writer.
Okay, so all that good stuff.
Storytelling. But liberal arts departments where you get English degrees and all of that, art degrees, they're they're probably like tiny little microcosms of what it's like in like Hollywood, because there's just one super dominant narrative. Everything is filtered through the same lens all the time. And being immersed in that is really where I realized like how freaky it is. I don't know if everybody gets that opportunity to be so up close and personal, with like being surrounded. I mean, I know people, they might get in fights with their progressive friends online, or they might, occasionally have like a conflict, but you really realize how strange and bizarre and like just, it's like its own weird little dystopian world when you're really deep into it. And so crazy. What is your background? Are you conservative? Are you? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Not to like make this about you because
no.
but I'm very curious. I wish I was filming. Actually, are you filming this right now?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I'll probably use this because this is my question.
Yeah.
What is the thought process that took you sort of, did you grow up in this sort of mindset, or did it come to you through an evolution? Like what was the thought process two things that got you to be like, whoa, what's happening around me in this liberal microcosm is odd. And B, what makes you do a podcast about it?
Yeah, no, I love those questions, and thanks for asking me. Like you're more interesting than I am. But
it's fascinating.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Midwest. My dad has always, I shouldn't say my dad has always been conservative. My dad was a Democrat until he had a family, until he started having children. Right. He started paying taxes. Something clicked in his mind where it was like, what they say sounds really good, but it doesn't really work. And he really he liked Ronald Reagan a lot. So I know that of my dad. That's kind of his story. My mom was more apolitical. Growing up, I wouldn't say, I knew my dad was more conservative. He would, tell me about what was happening on the news. I've always had like a conservative influence, but he was a very good teacher in as far as like critical thinking goes. Yes. So I knew what he thought already, but he gave me kind of the room to be like, so what do you think about that, Carmen? Like, do you think that would work? And, kind of let me like walk through it. And so I've just always, I've approached news and literature and media with more skepticism, and not like bad skepticism, but just with like a
healthy dose of skepticism.
Right. Like I'm not just going to take this at face value. I'm going to think, I'm going to consider different things. And so that was just a huge, and really you probably would appreciate this too. When I was pretty young at school, I remember they made us watch this video, and it was supposed to be about like, Martin Luther King Jr. and, civil rights. And as a little kid, I was pretty little too. And as a little kid, I liked it. I was feeling like, inspired. And I found the movie at Blockbuster, brought it home, wanted to watch it. And I was watching it, and my dad walks in and he says, Carmen, there's things about this movie that are good, but do you realize that they're making all of the white characters seem really, really bad? Like, just pay attention and look at this. And do you see? And from that, like that I paid attention, and like the bus driver was fat and gross and mean and the white teacher, you know, it was very like intentional. And it was just that little light bulb for me, you know, as a little kid realizing like, oh, there's like messaging happening here.
Oh, how old were you then?
I think I was probably maybe 8. It was pretty young.
That's so good.
Yeah, it was really good. And, you know, he wasn't, you know, like people would probably want to do this big caricature of my dad that he's, you know, this just awful Republican racist guy. And
of course
he's of course not. Like he's a wonderful man. And that was just him putting that little, you know, be aware that this is something that happens, and think about it. Think harder. Don't just internalize what you're watching on the screen, and think about what it really means. Is it really true? And so that, you know, I've always had that influence. That's kept me very grounded. When I went to graduate school, you know, I was still a pretty conservative person, probably by most people's standards. I am a Christian, and so my Christian faith informs a lot of what I believe, and generally means that I land on the conservative side of the spectrum. But being in that progressive environment, I would say I was very open-minded. I mean, obviously conservatives are very often vilified, but almost all conservatives I know are very willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like they might not agree, but their general approach to people who are different is like, well, you know, like I'll listen, and, you know, we can hang out, we can have fun.
And that fundamentally plays into why a conservative's values, which is I have control over me and you have control over you.
Exactly.
And you don't have to live how I want to live.
Right, exactly. Well, and it also in terms of like expression, that's where it really like started causing problems, I think, is because I would see all these people expressing themselves and their art the way they wanted. You know, we were creative writers, and they were doing, you know, their hardcore progressive stuff, and I would try to express myself as a Christian, as a conservative, and, you know, I did it in fun ways. I'll toot my own horn. I'm like, I would say, as far as Christian writing goes, I think I offer something a little bit unexpected, you know, like my first book is possibly, God willing, coming out in the fall. And it's it's about a female UFC fighter. Like, you know, I'm doing different things. It's not like your but nonetheless, even though, you know, I think I was producing art at the same level, I was playing by their rules, I would still get this kind of like subtle, like, that's not okay. That's, you know, that's a white savior complex, or that's patriarchal, or, you know, whatever label they can think of.
That's bad. Like patriarchal is bad.
Right? Like patriarchy is kind of good. Like let's be real. Like I like men protecting me.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing, is it?
No, it's really not. But so just like I just kind of found, I think what the big wake up call was, I went into a very leftist space and I was willing to play by their rules. I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. And that was not extended to me. And slowly over time, I kind of was like, this is because this thought process is fundamentally authoritarian. Like you really don't want people who don't conform. And that was kind of my little metamorphosis of like, I'm just going to fight against this. I'm not going to like kind of go with the flow anymore. I'm not going to pretend like I'm neutral. I'm just going to say what I think. And it's really been great.
When did that happen?
Really, the big turning point was in 2018. I had my first daughter. And yes. Before then, you know, I wanted a book deal. I was being very careful. I was like, you know, very worried about being controversial, all this stuff. But then I had my daughter, Vivian, and I just remember holding her and looking at her and thinking about, you know, really it had to do a lot with my faith. I was thinking, you know, I want Vivian to grow up loving and trusting God and believing what he says and being willing to fight for hard things. Right. But then I thought about it and I was like, am I willing to do that? And I was like, how the heck is she going to learn to do it? Like if I'm worried about if people like me or if I'm going to get X, Y, and Z material success, then I was like, you know, she's not going to learn, or she's not going to learn it from me. You know, I have to show her that some things are worth the risk of not being liked. Some things are worth the risk of losing opportunities. And I mean, that certainly has happened. I have, you know, there has been a cost, but on the flip side, there has been so much gained in being truthful, being authentic, telling the truth. Man, like I would not change a thing. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
That is so incredible and so relatable too, because that's so much was my experience as well. And I'm not in I don't belong to a religious faith, but I do have a deep faith in God and a higher power. And I have very strong values that are a lot of them in sync with Judeo-Christian values, which was the fundamental structure of our great country, you know? So, you know, the fact that, so coming out, as it were, and I know you had some questions for me, and I'm sorry if we're jumping.
No. I love this. This is great. Better than mine.
No. Coming out was an act of faith on my part, because it felt like I was, as you said, hiding. And I was for 20 plus years in Hollywood. I was hiding, you know, and it wasn't that I necessarily identified as conservative Republican, or I just felt like what these people in liberal Hollywood were talking about was beyond dumb, you know, and so backwards, and they were convicted with a passion to it. And you know, like any, I guess, inherently conservative person would, you're like, okay, let them do their thing, you know. But once it started to take an effect, and I remember 4 years ago, I was with a family member who is out here as well, and they were like, can you believe what's happening in San Francisco at Berkeley? Was it Berkeley where Ben Shapiro went and they lost their minds? Antifa came. He was an anti-Semitist. I always say that word wrong. He's a very like devout Jewish man, is an anti-Semite. Yeah. And they were losing their mind. They were starting to create these safe spaces, and I was, you know, in my head, I'm like, wow, that's crazy. That'll probably end soon. Someone will stop that soon. And the soon never came, and it got worse and worse and worse. And I guess it was 7 weeks ago now. I think I could probably check my Instagram and have a better idea, but it got to this sort of boiling point inside me with, you know, knowing that this election was coming up, seeing every one of my cohorts in Hollywood repeating this toxic left liberal agenda from their massive platforms to United States and beyond, of this destruction of our great country. And I was like, I'm a coward if I can't say something. And my initial coming out, as it were, was just about putting in these sort of like subtle hints of like, hey guys, it's okay to be pro-America, you know, and it's okay to be proud of your country. And I was so far in BLM in the first like month, I was like, oh God, we have to save Black people, you know, like what is happening? And I was like, facts now, you know, like statistics, no, you know, let's go protest. And then I was like, wait a minute, like this is bad. And like none of us, including myself, was in taking a second. I remember like, and I couldn't tell you why I jumped on this bandwagon, because I've always been fairly independent. But when BLM came around the last election, I was like, you know, nah, I don't buy it. But for whatever reason, and I think it's just part of the process that needed to happen within me, I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. I have to support this. And I watched all the propaganda that was put out to support, you know, their facts, as it were, which would support their message. And I bought into it until I was able to take a moment and be like, this doesn't feel right at all. And for me, it started with a feeling versus, it actually did, you know, they're like facts versus feelings or whatever. But there is an intuitive guide I think we have within us. And if we're connected enough to it, we're like, this doesn't feel right. Let me investigate that and then look for facts. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so what didn't feel right was there was like a week of like, post the Black Square, don't post the Black Square, donate, sign your name, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, okay, you know, and I was doing like all these like anti-racism workshops online, book things. And I kept reading it and be like, that sounds cringy. Like, all white people are evil? Like, okay, I'll like extend my belief system for a second for that. But like, the more you did it, and part of the direction was, as a white woman, because you're evil, you're supposed to, and part of the problem, you're supposed to be quiet, don't say anything, support Black women, fine, I'm into that, and shut up and listen. And then it's like, wait, no discussion, no debate, like I just have to accept this new identity, which I have never identified as a white woman before. Now I have to put on this white woman character, and in that character is I'm inherently bad and need to shut up. And that's when I was like, oh, hell no. That's not going to work over here. Like, I'm all for helping people and getting myself out of the centering zone of attention to do that. And so there was this transition period where I was like, okay, maybe BLM isn't the way, but I do still want to support Black owned businesses. That could help change things, And the more I dug into it, I spoke to a friend of mine who's a investigative journalist in Venezuela. And I was like,
Wow.
I'm tripping out over what's happening here. Our streets are on fire. He goes, Samaire, BLM is a Marxist movement. They came to Venezuela. They show their support with Nicolas Maduro. Opal Tomadi came here. She wrote an open letter and interjected herself into, or was interjected into, the electoral process that reelected Nicolas the dictator as president, and said, oh, look at this, like super fair electoral process. Nobody wanted him president. He's a dictator.
It's been disastrous.
Terrorist and drug trafficking regime, not the guy that they want. And why is Opal Tomadi, the leader of BLM, siding with him? And that just dismantled and blew up everything. It's like, okay, the facts are our streets are on fire. These people have millions of dollars in donation, even from George Soros, who donated $220 million to the organization. Where's that money? Where'd it go? Are they giving it back? Or are all they are doing is dismantling, destruction, and getting people out of jail to do it again?
Yeah. Wow.
And
wow.
I talked to Chad. Chad, have you watched Uncle Tom?
I've seen parts of it, not the whole thing.
You got to watch it. Everybody has to watch it.
I love everybody in it, so I'm sure it would blow my mind. But
Chado Jackson is in it, and we spoke the other day, and he was saying, basically, BLM is every sort of will identify whatever it identifies as racist is actually Western civilization. So nuclear family, racist.
Right.
But that's our fundamental structure of capitalism.
That's a global ancient universal good. Like, and they'll point to oh, well, other cultures were like more community based. Yeah, but they still had families. They still came from families of origin. Like, we could be more communal based.
Absolutely. But and it's like, okay, so a smart person, even a fairly not smart person, anyone could say and have to acknowledge that an issue in Black communities and families is fatherlessness. Why on earth would we support an organization that wants to dismantle the nuclear family? That's the exact opposite of what we want to do.
Yeah. Right? Well, and they got a lot of pushback. I remember when that started gaining traction, lots of Black figures were saying this is crazy. I don't, we don't want to endorse that. Yeah. So, but then, then I've seen so many people too, run cover for them, be like, oh, well, they didn't mean dismantle the nuclear family, even though that's literally what it said.
I actually I came out, one of the first things I came out with saying was, something about masculinity and its importance, right? And I told you I was wanting to subtly put these things in.
You were just planting seeds.
Yeah. So at first I was like, look, I'm 100% against Marxism. I'm fully in support of Black people. I do not support BLM. And then one of the things I said, which I will never forget this, I said, it's okay to be proud of America. And a white liberal from West Hollywood, I've known for 20 years, wrote me back and said, no, it's not. And it was like, oh, okay, I'm going to war now.
That's so awesome.
this is it. This is not happening. I can't, you know what I mean? Like that was my war call. Like, okay, this is what I have to, that was it. And so from
you were
then,
like William Wallace. You were like, it's on.
Yeah, it's on.
War paint.
Going. Yeah, totally. And
I love it.
You know, it was when our police, a man and woman in Los Angeles was attacked, shot in the face, and I think.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
And that woman, such a freaking hero radioed that in. Yeah, she helped her partner.
Could barely speak because
I know.
A mother, by the way.
Yeah.
And before they got to the hospital, they tried to stop them and get in the way of the ambulance and scream BLM. And still, people were like, "Well, how do you know it's a domestic terrorist organization?" You know, like, what other evidence? I had one girl, sweet girl that I just met during the BLM movement. She said, "Well, have you looked at their website? Do you think they're going to spell it out and say that they're a domestic terrorist organization? You have to look at these people's actions, you know?" And like, people are clinging on to dear life, to what sounds right, not to what's happening right in front of them.
Yeah, that's so true. Wow, your transformation is cool. Like, that is really, like, you know, and for so many people it doesn't click. So I'm just like glad to hear that. And just one thing, as you were describing, you know, how you said it was kind of a feeling more than a fact at first, that sort of what, like, you know, made you start to rethink it. What you're describing, I've kind of written about it a little bit in regards to the BLM movement, and specifically, there's a lot of Christians who buy into the BLM movement. They kind of take it on as like a very, you know, social justice. It's a important thing amongst a lot of Christian circles. But what you were just saying, one thing that I think is so apparent from the BLM type stuff is how much they burden people, how much they put heavy burdens that people cannot bear. Like this idea that because my skin is whiter that I am inherently bad. I have to be quiet. I'm privileged. I can't say anything. I can't know anything. I can't, you know, and it's just, that is such a wrong burden to place on people, especially people you don't even know. You're just literally just looking at their skin color. You're looking at them. You're deciding you're an oppressor. You're a villain. You need to be quiet. And so I think that burden at some point, I do know some people, just that feeling of like, I want to learn, I want to help, but what they're telling me I have to do is like crushing me, you know? And it's it's impossible. Like, I can't do it. Like, if you really think about it, like, I'm supposed to use my voice, but I'm also supposed to be quiet. I'm supposed to post this, but I can't post, like, you know, it's just like you just feel like you're just being manipulated, because that's what you are. You are just being manipulated by whatever's going on. So I just thought that, you know, as you were describing that, I know what you're talking about as far as just that like heaviness of this. There is injustice in the world. I want to help. I don't want to sit silently by, but I also don't want to be manipulated into being just, you know, crushed under a weight of falsehoods about myself and about the world.
I think, you know, I think the biggest thing too is that for so long, even through school, right, we are told what to do, told to sit down, told to stand up, told to go to recess, told what to do, you know, and there's no encouragement of sort of self-reliance or even reliance within, you know, something greater than yourself, like that you have this capability to tap into this truth that will lead you through life, and that the truth that is going to lead you through life is supposed to be this outside human source, and that's so dangerous. And I use the word disservice, but I want to find a word stronger than that, because it's more than a disservice. It's basically knocking people out at the knees. And if anything that I'm advocating for, it's that people are capable and have it within themselves to find that voice, to navigate through life, regardless of what other people are saying around them. And that doesn't matter what color skin you have or background or you are from. And I think, side note, the thing is really funny is you know, this idea of that, like, well, communism didn't work here, but the way we're going to try it is different, you know, like a jump from reality, which I get because when I was younger, I had drug and alcohol issues. And, you know, the thought process of it was, well, this is my thinking. I did it this way before, but if I do it this way and take naps, maybe it'll work this time. You know what I mean?
I've cracked the code.
I've got it figured out, guys. You know, and that's the thinking of it, it's not rational. It's not in tune with something greater than yourself. It's a desire to make something fit that's completely destructive. Like we'll add a nap, we'll add a safe space for everybody while we segregate. You know what I mean? Like,
this time we're gonna have safe spaces.
Right. This time, this total segregation of humanity by skin color will work because safe.
We haven't tried that before.
Right.
Like, you know.
It's nuts. Yeah.
No, well, and I think a lot of it is people just, I mean, obviously the education system is a big part of it. A lot of people just don't even know. They don't know how to identify communism. They don't even know. Right. Like I have Facebook friends sometimes, they'll post things like they thought of it. They're like, you know, what would be really great is if we took all the wealth from these people and gave it to these people. I'm like, congratulations, you invented communism. Like that's a thing. It already exists. People have tried it. It doesn't work. Like
millions of people have died, you know, from it.
But thanks for musing about it on Facebook. You know, it's just like people aren't that smart. Unfortunately.
And the lack of values of personal responsibility and personal capability. You know, we look at responsibility, we're like, oh, I don't like that idea that I have to take care of it. But people are equipped inherently to be capable of thriving. It's a positive thing. Like we can thrive. It's within us. You know, we can go from, and this is part of my life experience. Like when I was a little girl, we lived in a double wide in the middle of the forest, and people look at me and they're like, "Oh, you have everything." Oh, we didn't. You think we weren't born with everything?
Yeah.
We made. Oh, it's because you're white. Guess what? There are non-white people who are capable of the exact same thing.
Yes.
That's what America is about.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Preach.
Right?
I love it. Yeah.
And there was another point I was thinking about. Gosh, I can't remember now.
That's all right. We're getting into it.
Yeah, sorry, I got distracted.
No. I mean, I love it. You're a patriot. And I mean, just kudos to you for being in such an environment like that. I mean, it sounds like, you know, like you said, you have been an independent thinker for a long time, but you know, I can only imagine. I mean, I feel pressure sometimes in my very small world of publishing and stuff, but I can only imagine if I was like an actress, like, you know, the amount of pressure there would be to just go with the flow. And so, I mean, I think the fact that you could maintain your independence and really only get so swept up into BLM to have it be this wake up call, you know, is an amazing thing.
The silver lining to all of this, you know, BLM has been extremely destructive, but I do think it also has shined a light on, you know, something that's really important in the long run will sort of project us to a more positive living experience because you know, the Platinum Plan has happened. Ice Cube is speaking, you know, all these questions are being raised and being identified and there are so many Black conservatives who are becoming like really strong vocal leaders.
Yeah.
And being able to be sort of iconic in that people could aspire to be like them, Black, white, or other. That wasn't necessarily being showcased so clearly before.
Yeah, that's a really good point. One thing I was listening to some of your other interviews as I was preparing for this, because I wanted to know all the things. And there was something you said that I thought that was really interesting. I think I've tried to talk about it a little bit before, but I think you phrased it well. You were talking about Donald Trump, and you said he is like a hero and an anti-hero at the same time. And I think that this is a really interesting moment for, you know, people like you and I, people like those Black conservative leaders that you were just talking about, where for so long people believe this bizarre narrative that like the counterculture is being progressive. Like the
Right.
counterculture is like
Yeah.
purple hair and
Yeah.
BLM and,
Yeah.
you know, being super pro-choice and like all these positions that are extremely mainstream, extremely like, you know, you're not gonna get canceled for any of like the general progressive platform.
Right.
The reality is being countercultural is, you know, somebody like Candace Owens, somebody like, you know, somebody who is a hero and an anti-hero. They're doing good things, but they are vilified, slandered. You know, that's not to say that they're perfect. Like, I think anybody, you pick out anybody, even people that I really like, and sometimes they say stuff and I'm like, oh, I don't endorse that. But nonetheless, like the net positive is very good and very powerful. And so I think that one thing I would hope maybe in people listening to us talk about this, you know, I think I really hope my audience of young, free thinking, conservative, libertarian, just non-progressive women, you know, they kind of, I don't know what they call themselves, but they're just not progressive basically, would hear this and maybe tap into your hero, anti-hero persona. It's okay to not be liked. It's okay
it's important to be in that place too, because to be the hero without being hated is just the left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's so fake, you know, it's fake.
Yes. It goes nowhere. It does nothing. It's just narcissism. And you have to be willing. And I think especially people of faith can understand that. There's so much fear. And I've said this before. I never knew how many conservative actors I was friends with until I came out and they secretly wrote me a lot.
Wow.
But the fear of quote unquote being canceled is holding them back, right? So that fear, false evidence appearing real. I don't know if you've heard that acronym, right?
Yes.
You know, and the antithesis of it is going with this sort of like higher power God element that like no matter where I go, no matter what I do, if my motives are of pure intention, and, you know, and I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to be wrong, I will be taken care of. So it's quite likely that, you know, me jumping in and I say doing this kamikaze into coming out, calling out the left as it were, I could be canceled for all I know. I haven't necessarily felt the repercussions on. I've gotten a few messages saying that I should die, which, you know, whatever. I'm sure I will sometime. But you know, ultimately, because I took this step, this leap of faith with a higher power in mind guiding me through it, I know I'm going to be okay. And you know, whatever that looks like, and I'm open to it not looking great, you know what I mean? And if that's the consequence of this experience, I hope people can see that I was willing to take that step with that in mind, you know what I mean? And that, you know, the only way that we're going to stand up for our constitutional republic, the United States of America, is being willing to take those risks and get a little bit dirty and get a little bit hurt, maybe a lot hurt, who knows, maybe lose some friends. Were they friends really? I don't know. You know what I mean? And take those leaps of faith. And once I did, you know, they always say the fear of doing it outweighs the fear of what happens when you do. You know, it sounds so scary. I don't want to, but once you jump through that hoop, you're fully liberated. I've met so many wonderful people. And quite frankly, I never knew I'm going to be I was going to say 30, an extra decade. I'm going to be 40 on Halloween. And I had no idea for 40 years I was capable of this voice. I had no clue that this existed within me because I wasn't willing to take the risk to speak. People would talk to me about this stuff. You know, what do you think? Oh, I'm not political, you know? And
isn't that's so sad, you know, sad. that part of you for 40 years, you know, and for me for years of just feeling like I can't say this. Like, you know, I
have
can't
to survive within this world. And it's not a world you're surviving in. You're basically treading water to a slow drown. And the world that you and I are fighting for is liberation. And, you know, they say I'd rather die standing than on my knees. You know, or I'd rather die fighting than on my knees. And in that fight, you experience life. And I think a lot of us are missing sort of this purpose. Like, what is my purpose?
Yeah.
We can't find our purpose if we're not willing to take risks.
Yeah.
And yesterday, I posted posted a tweet of Joe Biden's, which probably means someone from some intern at his.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? He did not write that.
He didn't write it. Yeah.
He didn't. Then he said something to the effect of, we will not forget the names of Breonna Taylor, Jacob Blake, and George Floyd. This is going to start a new swing of American justice or something, basically calling for another wave of violence, but in my mind. But, I said, so I wrote a post saying, no, we will not forget the names of these criminals who then were turned into martyrs to tear down America and our culture as we see it. And I called my dad and I said, I'm about to put up this post. My dad's smart, so I called him. You sound like you have a smart dad.
I have a smart dad too. Yeah.
Important, right? Dads are important.
Yes.
I called him and I said, because I did some thinking, I was trying to tap into my inner guide, and I was like, okay, I need an outside guide for this one. I'm going to tag. I want to tag the people that I've noticed in the last, however long, who have been a detriment to what's going on. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Chelsea Handler.
Oh my gosh, and what a mess.
Right. Rosanna Arquette, who went and
right.
supported Chelsea during that process, and LeBron James and Sean King. I want to write this post. I can't decide if I should tag them or not, because I don't know if it's petty or if it's unnecessary, if it's taking it too far, if it's calling too much attention directly to them, to me. He goes, what is the point of doing anything that you're doing if you're not willing to take a risk? I was like, okay. That's like full approval for, you know what I mean? Like, just to check your motivations. I obviously don't want to start any sort of drama that's not necessary, but if nobody else is going to call them out, and there's plenty of people doing, but in my world, no.
Right.
Who else is going to? And that was really I kept looking around saying, okay, who's going to do this? And I'm shocked that 7 weeks in, it's still only me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know I'm not the only one who thinks this. And I'm specifically talking about Hollywood.
Right.
And there are other, but there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear that, they won't be provided for, or they'll lose their job, or they'll lose potential jobs, or, and I get it. But I've said this before, I'm more afraid of seeing what happens if we don't.
Yes. No, I think I in a small way, I can relate because when I started doing what I was doing, I was still fairly immersed in like academic circles. Mm-hmm. And, when I finally wrote my first sort of like critique of progressives, it was crazy. Like I lost like 90 friends in like a day. Like, it was explosive.
Yeah.
And for a while there, it felt pretty lonely. Like, it felt like I'm fighting for this. This is important enough for me to fight for it. But I feel but I think, it was just that understanding of this needs to be said. This needs, and regardless of how it's going to be received, it needs to be said. And slowly, and this is what I would really hope and pray is what's happening with what you're doing is, a little by little, someone else, it's going to click, and they're going to, and it's sort of, once that starts happening, now what really helped is, I think, as I started writing more and building my platform, I started to find my people. I started to find more people who wanted to read what I had to say. And now, I think Will Witt, if you're familiar with him over at PragerU, he has a quote that says, he says, if you're scared of losing friends for coming out as a conservative, just know you're going to make the best friends you've ever made when you come out conservative.
Honestly, that quote got me through a little bit of a hump.
Yeah.
Someone sent me that, and it's so
true. Yeah. Now, I look back, and I lost people that I love. And I hope that one day, I hope it's not forever. I hope they're going to come around. I hope they'll, even if they don't come around to my point of view, I hope they'll at least come to a emotional maturity where we could have fun together. And, but all that said, I wouldn't trade any of it. I have met just truthful, authentic, wonderful people, and we can talk about, we can tell the truth, you know, like what a beautiful thing after so long of feeling like you have to be quiet, you have to be silent, you have to be worried, like yeah. And you know, we don't, it's like, it's not this, I still, you know, even within conservative circles and Christian circles and libertarian circles, we don't agree on everything, but there's just this freedom to be like, well, let's look at the facts, or I just don't agree with you, but it's okay. Like, you know, and that doesn't exist really anymore on the left side of things. And it's a scary thing. And I think at some point though, if you keep, you know, you keep doing what you're doing, more and more people are going to be like, I want what she has. She's free. Right. You know, like she might not get to be on, you know, Oprah or whatever, but she's at least free, and freedom is underrated.
Yes. It is. Freedom is scary for people.
Yeah.
You know, they want to be taken care of. They want other people to tell them what to do. There's a lack of faith in freedom. You're right.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's already almost been an hour.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
I know. And you know what? I don't even mind that we didn't answer. This was great. I'm just going to see if there's any like one last lingering question I might ask you. And then you probably have other things you need to do, but this was I think everyone's going to be super encouraged.
Thank you so much. And anytime you know, if you want to do a follow up, just let me know. I'd love, you know, it's people like you who are going to change the world of entertainment, culture. You know, our reality as we know it depends on people like you, because there needs to be writers to create that moral code for other people to read, see, hear.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, one thing, you know, you probably will, maybe I'll just end on this, is you might appreciate this story, is, you know, when I was getting my degree, when I was in this environment where, you know, I had all this creativity, I had all these ideas, I believed in myself. I believed that I could do it. I was ambitious, but I also felt like the world was just kind of like, Carmen, nobody wants that. People don't want what you have to say. What you have to say is corny. What you have to say, you know, just like that voice, all these voices I'd taken on. And I just remember walking to my building on campus, you know, kind of warring voices inside of me. And I would just pray the same prayer of like, God, if I'm going to do anything, just let me break up this stronghold on the arts. Like if I'm going to do anything in my career, help me to like shake off this vice grip that, you know, is just making so many people feel like they can't speak and they can't write and they can't paint and they can't act. Help me to just throw it off. And I can't, you know, I cannot say, I mean, I haven't achieved that, but that's something I keep in the back of my mind. I remember
your motto. That's amazing.
Yep. I remember 20-year-old Carmen just thinking that, like, if I could just do one thing, I want the arts to reflect truth and beauty and freedom and just have a whole wealth of experiences and just not to be confined to this sad thing. So, but thank you so much for the encouragement.
Of course. Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you for doing it.
Yeah. Let's definitely do this again sometime.
Okay,
I would
sounds
love
good.
to do it.
Absolutely. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Have a good day. Talk to you later.
Too. All right. Thank you. Hey, it's me again. Wasn't that great? She's a cool lady. So I just wanted to pop back on the screen to remind you to do all those things. To like the page. Go follow Samaire Armstrong on Instagram. Say hello. She's super nice. She'll respond to your Instagram message. Say hello to me if you want. Do all the stuff. We wanna connect with you. So peace out.